Well, welcome. We're going to call the Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety Committee meeting to order at a little bit past 5 p.m. on March the 12th. Do I have any public comment? Did anybody send anything in? Hearing none, we'll go on with committee business. The first item is item A, which is approval of the April 14th, 2020 minutes. Does anybody have any additions or subtractions?
Madam Chair, a point of information, I have a typo on page 4. The purchase of park traffic cones is actually a purchase of park traffic gates. The narrative actually correctly refers to it as gates. For some reason, it says cones.
Cones, yeah,
title.
Interesting.
Probably autocorrect or something like that.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else? I do have one addition, which is I believe that Deputy Mayor Honda was at the last meeting. I don't see her name.
She's listed. Her name is on there. It's there.
Listed. Her name is on there? Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Okay, and let's note for the minutes that we do have Councilmember Lydia Cephas-Dawson and Councilmember Greg Baruso, who are members of the committee, who are here, as well as Councilmember Mark Popang and Deputy Mayor, Council President Susan Honda. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented with the one change from cones to gates?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second has been moved by Councilmember Baruso and seconded by Councilmember Cephas-Dawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. So the next item on the agenda is the Memorandum of Understanding between the LTCA, LLC, and the City of Federal Way for the Pacific Highway Substation. And I imagine that's Kyle Sumter who's going to be making the presentation. Is that right?
Yes, this is Kyle Sumter speaking for the police department today. The issue before the council is, should the City of Federal Way through the police department enter into this memorandum of understanding with LTCA LLC in order to take possession of or inhabit a proposed substation on Pacific Highway. And it will be at no ongoing cost to the city. As you'll see in the packet there, it looks like approximately $4,000 is the estimated IT connection cost. And beyond that, there should be no ongoing city expense.
Okay. Council, are there any questions? Thank you. I have one.
I've raised my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. After you.
No, Lydia, go ahead. Councilmember Cephas-Dawson, go ahead, please.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, honestly. I just wanted you to notice, and I couldn't unmute myself.
I can't see the hands on my, I'm not sure why not, but go ahead, Councilmember. I'll come after you.
Okay, 2 questions. One is, can you say where it's located exactly?
Yes. Do you recall where the former lumber yard was? It is, here, I'll give you the exact address.
I think he means new lumber.
3054 Pacific Highway.
By the high school?
Yes.
Okay, so that,
it's
okay, that one.
On the east side of the road.
Okay, so my second question is, it's through February of 2021, if I remember that correctly?
Yes, however, if not terminated by one of the parties, it will automatically renew annually.
But it could mean that we'll stop paying after, excuse me, 2021.
Well,
possibly.
Not the way it's currently written. And I can tell you that that is not the intent of Tom Cantrell, the owner and the man who's proposing this. The way it is currently written, it would perpetuate at no cost to the city. So there would have to be a written agreement following that. Certainly that's the circumstance that we find ourselves in with the Twin Lakes substation, but not presently with this one.
Thank you.
Sure.
Council members, are there any other questions? I can't see hands, so you're just going to have to
I have a question.
speak up.
So this is where the controversial sign was for against marijuana stores, correct?
Yes.
What else is in that building besides the substation?
I do not know. The only portion of the building I've been in is the area that is proposed to be the substation. I don't know what else is in there.
So wouldn't you want to know what's,
Yes. Yes. It was under construction when I was there. Well, finishing touches of it. I don't recall that there was anything currently happening in there. I don't know what his proposal is for the rest of the building, but we can find out. It'll be easy.
that would be a good thing to know before you go in there, what the rest of the building's going to be.
Yeah.
Also, I like that we have substations around town. I think that's a good idea. There's another substation fairly close to this one, the one over by the transit center. Is there any work on trying to get a substation out in the 356th area where we've had some issues lately?
Not currently, no. I can tell you that we become aware of locations when owners or managers of properties approach us. These aren't items that we're out trying to turn up. And that's why most of them come to us free of charge, because it's an owner who's got a vacant space and they would like to have the police there, and they contact us. We would certainly entertain a spot out there if there was a property owner in a viable location that offers certain features that we would want to see there. But we would certainly consider it and bring it to your attention.
Okay. And if there was a cost for this, if in a year or two, they would like to have a rental fee, is that something that would work into the police department's budget?
No, we have no budget for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
And guess what? I found the hands. So if anybody else wants to raise your hand, go ahead. We're good. Okay. Susan, lower yours. Councilmember Baruso.
Oh, thank you. The estimated cost is 4,000. That's just estimated. So
Yes.
So if it goes over that,
Well, we could talk to Thomas. I see he is still logged on here. We got that figure. It's his estimation of what it would cost his department to get us hooked up in there.
just kind of wondering if there's
Yeah.
any
If it
percentage
goes over
of
that,
contingency in there.
it'll come from the police department budget. Thomas, I see you're
Okay.
lit up there. Go ahead.
So, Councilmember Baruso, that 4,000 is originally just we have to purchase a wireless bridge, so to establish connectivity to that building. So we have fiber at the corner of 308 and Pacific Highway, and so we're going to use a wireless point-to-point bridge between that traffic signal pole and the side of the building. In addition, we have some network infrastructure, network switches and that kind of stuff that we have to put in there as well. So the owner, Tom Cantrell, has done a pretty decent job helping us out. He's cabled on his own expense the entire area that we would be going into, in addition to all the additional ballistic glass and drywall and stuff that he's put up at his own expense. So basically just connectivity and systems that we need, like I said, network switch and wireless bridge, to be able to get that link in the connection established between the two to our network.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Baruso. Are there any other questions? Officer Sumter, I do. I believe that Tom Cantrell had a connection with the PACCAR opening up, buying the property east of I-5 on Pisa Canyon. And I would assume that his office there would have something to do with that whole operation. I'm not sure, but at any rate, he's been very generous with our city, and happy to have him on board.
He really
Council?
has. He's gone to considerable expense to outfit this office space to make it safe for police to inhabit.
Right. That's great. Council, are there any other questions? And if there are none, can I hear a motion? Is there a motion to accept the MOU between LTCA and the city?
I'll do the motion.
Thank you.
Chair Kochmar, I move to forward the MOU between LTCA LLC and the City of Federal Way to the May 19, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second to move this item to the next consent agenda on May 19th for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Officer Sumter. So item C on the agenda is the second amendment to the MOU between Memorandum of Understanding between Habitat for Humanity, Seattle, King County, and the City of Federal Way. Sarah Bridgeford, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair Kochmar. Good evening. Tonight I am presenting on the second amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Federal Way and Habitat for Humanity of Seattle, King County. We had entered an agreement, a developer's agreement with Habitat during the 2008 recession with the Neighborhood Stabilization Funds, or NSP3 funds. They completed that agreement purchasing a total of 10 properties that went to households from Federal Way with low and moderate incomes. As part of that agreement, we also entered into a memorandum of understanding, which the amendment is before you this evening. The MOU plans for how the funds from the mortgage payments will be reinvested back into the community, and that's for a period of 15 years. The original agreement, if you recall NSP3 funds, they were specifically for foreclosed properties, and during the housing market crisis, that made a lot of sense. Now we're in a different environment where it's increasingly difficult to purchase foreclosed properties. It actually has not been possible, and Habitat has requested this amendment as a result. And we are in support of it. It's within the regulations. It will allow them to continue to develop affordable housing for Federal Way residents. It's a small number of housing units that they could potentially develop. It's not a lot of funding. They'll bring some other money to potential projects. The one that precipitated this amendment is actually an acquisition of vacant land that they would be able to develop. It is currently cheaper for them to develop new housing than it is for them to purchase existing housing. So it's a fairly straightforward amendment that allows them, again, to purchase land as well as develop new housing rather than just rehabilitate existing. I would be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Council, do we have any questions? Councilmember Sepa Dawson.
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for the presentation and clarification. So my question is, we use CDBG funds for this, correct?
No, it's separate from CDBG. It's similar. It was through HUD and then the state, but they're not CDBG funds.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So
No, that's okay.
So with those funds, though, how long can they carry them over into the following subsequent years if they don't expend all the funds?
Yeah, NSP is a little bit different than CDBG, and these funds are actually different than what we typically think of for CDBG. This would be similar to program income that we talk about in the CDBG program, but there isn't, it's actually not program income, so it's treated a little bit differently. There isn't a time period, so the way the agreement is structured is that once it hits 200,000, that they have to have a conversation with the city staff. And if they have to present a project, we basically do an eligibility review, but we don't have the ability to say yes or no, provided that it is an eligible project. So it depends on how long it takes them to hit that $200,000 mark on how often they would pursue a project. In this case, I think it was about 2 years before they had that much funding.
Okay, and my other question is when they do the community, put it back into community revitalization, does it have to be near or around that actual house, or could it be anywhere in the community or in our city?
That's a good question. Anywhere within the city of Federal Way, and then it has to benefit Federal Way residents.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Cepheus-Dawson. Good questions. Are there any other questions from any of the council members? Hearing none, I have none. Do I hear a motion?
Sure. I move to forward the proposed amendment to the May 19, 2020 consent agenda for approval.
Is there a second? Thank you, Councilmember Baruso. It's been moved and seconded to move the second amendment to the MOU between Habitat for Humanity, South King County, and the City of Federal Way to the consent agenda for the May 19th council agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Finally, we're at the CDBG funds for COVID-19. And again, that's Sarah Bridgeford.
Well, again, first I want to say thank you to Chair Kochmar for allowing us to go a little outside of a normal process and coming to committee this evening with an update and then going directly to council on June 2nd with the annual action plan amendment. What is precipitating that is in order to expedite the funding. It may not seem like a lot, but it does get us to submitting that amendment to HUD 2 weeks sooner. So when we're talking about critical resources that can go out to residents, we felt like that 2 weeks was important enough to ask for coming to committee again this evening with an update rather than the proposed amendment to the 2019 annual action plan. So thank you for that, and I hope that that is understandable and supported in general. As shared with you previously, the city is receiving $432,622 in additional community development block grant funds, or CDBG funds. These funds are specifically to respond to COVID-19 and the measures that have been taken to slow or reduce its spread. This will require an annual action plan amendment. We will be amending our 2019 plan just because our 2020 is still under review with our new 5-year consolidated plan. We will also be recommending the reprogramming of about $210,000 from 2019 from projects that were underspent. And it would be a process that we would have to go through anyway, so it enables us to do a little bit more right now in response to COVID-19. So the plan will be to have our applications that just closed today at 5 p.m. Staff will review them tomorrow. We have 1 day for that review, and then they will go to the Human Services Commission that all members have agreed to review any applications that we receive by Monday, May 18th. It's a really quick turnaround. Again, we're trying our best to make sure that we are able to get the funds into the community as quickly as possible. They will make a recommendation to include projects in the annual action plan amendment. Typically, they would see that amendment come to commission first. We actually won't be doing that in this case. Per HUD, there are 2 waivers that we're taking advantage of to expedite the deployment of the funds, one of which is an emergency amendment to our citizen participation plan that will be coming to council on June 2nd, and the use of a 5-day comment period that truncates this process further. The commission is in support of that. Again, they'll be making that recommendation on which projects would be funded, just not the final annual action plan amendment. We did run, one other thing that I would just share is that we did run a very short survey to try to engage community at least a little bit in this process up front. Typically, we have months of work, different community meetings that we're going to, and given COVID-19, we weren't able to take those steps. So we did a survey and unfortunately only received 49 responses, so certainly not representative of the community. But I would just comment that, not surprisingly, there are needs across the board. The needs that were highlighted the most, with 17 to 21 responses each, were rental assistance, mortgage assistance, small business assistance, broadband wiring, homeless services, and mental health and substance use treatment. There were some other categories that were on that survey, all of which received less than, I think it was 7 responses. So there's a little bit of a difference between the two. But again, a very small sample size. I just thought it was worth noting that, similar to what we're hearing in the community, one of the biggest needs will be around financial assistance, whether that's rent or assisting businesses. And then I think that's all I have. One other item is that we will publish a public notice on May 22nd in the Federal Way Mirror to announce the public comment period that will begin on that day and conclude on June 2nd at the council meeting. We'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Councilor, do we have any questions? Excellent presentation, Ms. Bridgeford. Thank you very, very much.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Council President.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. I can wait till you're done.
No, just going to say,
Sarah,
get the money in their hands as soon as possible. Thank you.
do you know how many applications you received?
We received 7, and we'll double check that in the morning. They were electronic, and my colleague Brittany Julius is the person who is receiving them, and she said that there were 7. We anticipated as many as 9, which may seem small. It is relatively small, but these funds come with even additional requirements and regulations in addition to those that are typical with CDBG.
So,
Thank you.
do you know if businesses wanted assistance, did they have to apply individually to you?
That would actually be separate from this application. So what the city is looking at is either a third party or an internal process for potential of micro enterprise loans. So with CDBG funds, micro enterprise is 5 or fewer employees, and they have to be business owners that are low and moderate income. So there are some additional requirements there. We are pursuing such a program. We'll have that recommendation for City Council on June 2nd. Then the application would be separate from what this was. This would be more like a nonprofit coming in and saying, we're going to run a micro enterprise grant program on behalf of the city as a subrecipient, rather than the businesses coming to us and requesting funds in this process.
Okay, thank you.
I see Councilmember Baruso has his hand raised.
Hey, thank you, Chair Korchmar. Thank you, Sarah. It's not really a question, just a comment. I just want to thank Sarah for the work she puts in, and I know this is going to be a big process and to help everyone out, but I just want to thank you for your work that you're doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Sepa Dawson.
Yeah, thank you. So Sarah, the money that we are going to be granted from the state, is that also going to go through the same process whenever that becomes available to us?
That is an excellent question. Now, are you talking about the state's CDBG allocation?
No, I think it's the state. Is it CDBG? The 1.9 or so?
The CARES money from the...
Yeah, the CARES
that?
money, I'm sorry. Yes, which is also for the related services, correct?
I think there are multiple uses, and that is not currently in the Community Services Division. I know that there are some conversations going on, but I don't have that information. We will potentially be getting additional CDBG allocations from the state as well as directly through HUD. We don't know for sure, but we should hear soon. And for those projects, I can say that we're hoping to be recommending contingency projects that will get incorporated into this annual action plan amendment. That will make it quicker. So once we have funding, we would be able to deploy those funds immediately. That the state funds were separate.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Are there any other questions? Well, seeing none, I'm going to get ready to order from a local business for takeout because we need to support our businesses.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. So the next Parks meeting will be June the 9th at 5 p.m. And I'm assuming it will be another Zoom meeting because City Hall doesn't open until June the 22nd, according to Mr. Fitchner. Anyway, so thank you all. It was an excellent meeting. It was short and it was comprehensive and had some good information in it. Anyone else for the good of the order? Okay. Seeing none, have a wonderful, wonderful week. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.